Welcome to the Cyber Center for Biblical Studies. Hi, my name is Herb Bateman. Today we want to review a book entitled, Is God Just a Human Invention? And 17 other questions raised by the New Atheists, written by McDowell and Jonathon Marrow. Today we have with us Mike Hontz from Pleasant View Bible Church, senior pastor there in northern Indiana. And he's here to give us a little insight into this book. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Herb.
Well, as we think about this book, what would you say is the driving thesis, the thesis that drives this book?
So this book is arranged around the title, essentially, various questions that are posed to Christianity by the New Atheist movement. Sort of what are the an overview of the hot button issues in the debate today between, is Christianity just a made up religion surrounding a made up God, or is it in fact based on truth? And so each chapter lays out a different issue, and sort of they're fairly short chapters, sort of get to the core of the question, provides just a little bit of the high points of argumentation against it. And then each chapter has a follow-up by a theologian in a field related, whereby they talk about why does it matter? Why does this issue matter? Why do we need to make sure that we get this right? And how does it affect one's faith in Christianity and how we live and such? So.
Okay, so can you give me a title of one of the chapters and one of the theologians that responds? Have I put you on the spot?
I'd have to look at the book real quick to get it exactly
That's
right.
That's fine. But you did mention that Darrell Bach responded to one of the...
He responded to one that had to do with the Gospels.
Okay.
And who is Jesus.
Okay.
Whether Jesus was a real person, I believe, is what it had to do with.
So the chapter had to deal with the Gospels and whether Jesus was really real, and address those questions. And then Darrell, being an expert in the Gospel studies, gave a response. So that's the type of format that this book follows. Well, yes. Good, very good. What spurred you to want to read this book? What caused you to want to read this?
Yeah, well, at our church, we were concerned about our teens going off to college, and the numbers of teenagers, even from solid Bible churches where they grew up in church learning Scripture, would go off to college. They would be confronted with a very confident secular professor who would sort of laugh at the idea of their religion, would describe it as sort of wishful thinking and myth, and would have a couple reasons why it couldn't be true, and how common it was for teenagers to be their faith to be shattered. And so we felt like it was pretty important for us. In fact, it was coming off of a series I was doing through the book of Daniel, and looking at Daniel as a youth going off to Babylon and being confronted with a very pagan society and culture, and yet he was able to remain faithful. And sort of was part of what spurred us on to thinking about the importance of us making sure that our youth are prepared to face a secular culture.
Were there, as you prepared for this, did you basically use those 17 questions to set off each one of your classes?
No. I can't even remember exactly how. I don't think we used a book per se. So another gentleman and I got together and we brainstormed, what are sort of the essential topics. And we tried to start with, most foundational and building on it. So, most foundational, does God exist? What are the classic arguments for the existence of God? And what are the arguments against the existence of God? Moving on to how did we get here? Creation versus evolution. And if evolution, how about the very beginning at the bare minimum? Is there randomness to the world? And so just sort of building, if God, then what next? And moving toward from belief in God to belief in the Bible, if belief in the Bible, the person of Jesus Christ, the claims of Jesus Christ, a belief in miracles, and sort of building one on the next.
Okay.
And
so how many weeks was this that you ran this class?
I believe it was 12 weeks.
12 weeks. So that's a nice that's a nice number. 12 weeks, attention span is still there. Get beyond 12, you can start to lose them, don't you?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this was basically a supplemental text.
And it came in handy because I reviewed another book, True Reason, which I had also purchased for a study on this, and that book was a bit more heady, a bit more in depth, I would say, a bit more theoretical, philosophical, and this one was just very practical, very sort of nuggets of issues, and I think this would be a very easy one to recommend to your average teenager, your average adult, and they would glean a lot from it. It would be very practical to them.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So you basically had two texts. This one that a layperson could read and walk away with, and then one that was a little more heady. Do you remember who those authors were?
Tom Gilson and Carson Whitnauer.
Okay. So Tom Gilson
and Carson Whitnauer.
Whitnauer, okay.
Yeah.
And of course, we've reviewed that book,
Yes.
haven't we? Okay, so that's something we could look forward to on another video.
Yes.
All right, good. Is there any question you wish the author had covered that he didn't? I mean, 17 questions. There's probably a host of questions he could have. I know Kriegel does a series entitled 40 question series. 40 questions on elders and deacons, and 40 questions on interpretation, and 40 questions on evolution. And of course, even with 40 questions, you wish you could put a couple more in there. Were there any other questions that you wish that may have been covered?
I don't think, I didn't come away feeling critical about the book. There wasn't any major gaps. They cover issues related to miracles, the beginning of life, evolution, slavery, hell. One of the emotionally charged topics that often comes back to is that the new atheists will paint Christianity as having a God that delights in torturing people for all of eternity in hell. And so I think the title of that chapter was, "Is Hell Really a Divine Torture Chamber?" Or something. And so, a lot of the topics are relatively practical to questions of kind of looking at another chapter was, is God a genocidal bully or a genocidal maniac? I don't remember which word, but again, to kind of taking those hot button questions and trying to respond to them. So,
what did you consider to be most insightful? Anything stand out in your mind? Sometimes a book is so evenly written that nothing really stands out, but sometimes there might be something that kind of said, "Wow, I never thought about that from that angle." Did anything stand out to you like that?
I don't remember any particular chapter just sort of being way better than the next. I guess what stood out to me was more or less the format being very readable, relatively short, the sort of thing that I've recommended this book to a few people since, because I felt like they did a good job. Their tone was kind but confident in what they believe. They weren't afraid to acknowledge at times where, this is based on faith, and we do have to take this by faith, and yet our whole Christianity is not simply based on blind faith. And so I felt like they tried to be fair to the other side of the argument. So I felt like I really appreciated the way they tried to answer these various questions.
Okay. In some ways, we've already answered this question. What other books stand out in your mind that are helpful? And you've mentioned True Reason. Are there any others?
By name, I've read a few others when I was doing this series, and I didn't come prepared with them written down. But
okay.
There are a number of books in this genre currently by present-day apologists who write to address the topic of new atheism and to give Christians confidence in defending their Christianity.
Is Moreland one?
Sure. Yeah.
Is it J.P. Moreland is he at Talbot?
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike, thank you for sharing.
Sure.
I appreciate it. I know you've done a lot of work in this area, and the fact that you've run this class to help your teens, just the very way in which you worked your way through Daniel, and then saw the need to help prepare teens as you send them out. What a novel idea! What a great idea! And I trust that you will find this rewarding, and perhaps maybe give you some insight into maybe something you might do for your own teens as you think about those that are in your congregation that are planning to go to college, and some of the challenges that they will face in a secular university. In the meantime, I want to thank you for joining us, and I trust that you will walk with the King and be a blessing. Thank you.